I mean, that is, $3.99. Now, he can make them for $1. He sells them wholesale for $2.80. So $4. That's $2.20. Of course, the store, transportation, distribution costs, and all that stuff. Some labor costs out of there and all that stuff. But he's, it's, I don't know. He's in 60,000 stores, and if he sells, 1,000 per store. So I had a little bit of money there. But anyway, it's a fairly simple thing. I mean, washing dishes. Who would think that's creative or innovative? But I tell you what, a personal testimony, I love mine. I mean, now whereas washing dishes was, drudgery before, I kind of like it because, hey, it's a Shark Tank winner I'm using here, I mean, it's the whole experience, the quality of the experience has been enhanced, at least for me. Now, it also helped that at church 2 or 3, Sabbaths ago, for our special feature, our health director, wellness and health, she got up and said, working with your hands helps to stave off things like Alzheimer's. And she said, for example, washing dishes by hand, particularly, helps, with cognitive decline and everything. So I told my wife, honey, I've got the brain of a 20-year-old right here. All the dishes I do with this thing, so I'm good to go. Anyway, so I had a scrub day. Now, lessons from that. I mean, I'm sure you picked up on a bunch of lessons. For example, his weights, 10-pound weights on the thing. I mean, to describe that this thing is hard in cold water and it's like a sponge in warm water, I mean, you guys understand what I'm talking about. But to demo it like that, that's gut pounding. I mean, so to be creative about illustrations like that is, that's really cool. But there are some others too. Brevity. I tell you what, important people like executives and venture capitalists, you lose their attention fast. So you want to capture their attention immediately if possible, but certainly within the first 1 or 2 minutes. Otherwise, you've lost them. So some kind of a hook, real briefly capture their attention. And then, of course, you want to illustrate, not just describe, but illustrate how what you're doing solves a problem, or provides a solution to a problem, or enhances some aspect of everyday mundane experience. That's a huge opportunity because you usually don't think about, I'm going to be creative. I'm going to attack washing dishes. I mean, but it's not just about solving problems. It's also about enhancing people's experience. Better, something that's more efficient, more effective than other attempts, more cheaply or more fun than alternatives, delight the user. Sometimes that's underexplored, particularly for people who are technical, like engineers or IT software developers. And they don't think about that. They think, I got all the technical details right. Look at this wonderful new phone, man. It just works every time. Well, what about, does a 5-year-old pick it up and her eyes light up? I mean, delighting the user, that's something that's sometimes underexplored. Are you providing a pleasant, even joyful experience? Cost-effective quality. Something not only saves money, but increases the quality of an experience or of a tool or a gadget or whatever. Now, here's just you're going to think that I sort of responded to Scrub Daddy in coming up with these categories, but I didn't. In fact, these categories which define something that's creative or innovative, these were published in the mid-90s by the American Psychological Association in a book, I don't remember the title of the book right off, but it's a great, wonderful book. Cognitive Structures, the Elements of Creativity, or something like that. That's not the title, but something like that. Mid-90s, these 4 criteria define what something, if it's creative or innovative. First of all, original, or novel. Now, is that new? Well, sponge. but the biochemistry or whatever chemical went into making it so that in cold water it's hard and soft water it's soft, but even when it's hard, it's still not going to scratch anything because it's a sponge. And the shape of a smiley shape, and these features that make it, you can grip it and all that stuff. So yeah, it's novel. There's a lot of aspects to it that are novel. So something has to be original or novel. Even surprising helps. So that's one aspect. Something that's creative or innovative, it's new. Useful, practical. Now remember, these criteria were published in the mid-90s. So I'm not cataloging or categorizing the experience of Scrub Daddy. It just happens that, look how that thing is nailing all these criteria, okay? Something that's, is it useful? For example, in our subculture, we hated, several years ago, you guys might even be too young, you might not even remember this, but some artist put a crucifix in a jar of urine and called it art. Well, that might be new. Maybe no one has ever done that before, and so artists think, oh, look, this is a piece of art. But is it useful or practical? Absolutely not. Okay, so the third one is influential. Is it something that's likely to be influential? That is it market appeal broad enough to make it influential? At least potentially. Now, that's where sort of futurism comes in. What are the trends? What are the projections? What are the trajectories? All that sort of thing. You have to kind of evaluate that. If you were a venture capitalist, how is it possibly going to be influential? Can it touch a lot of lives? Finally, instances of socio-historical creativity and innovation invariably involve concentrated effort over an extended period of time. So the idea that, hey, if you're sweating, if you're having to work hard, you're not creative. I mean, truly creative people, it just flows, man. You just get into the flow and it just trips off of your tongue. You don't have to work at it. If you do, if you're working hard, then you're not creative. That's BS, to be euphemistic here for an Adventist institution. Almost all instances of lasting creativity or innovation, concentrated effort over an extended period of time. So that doesn't mean that you're not creative. That means that you're starting to gain some traction. So anyway, questions? Or just observations? Pick up on anything that you like?
For the catchy part, to gain the attention of those who are listening to your idea, what do you need to bring on first? The problem and the solution? Just like that?
Well, that's a good question. So in other words, you demonstrate the solution and then go back and give the problem context and say, look, how this solves this. Honestly, at least for me personally, that would just be a guess. I'm not really sure. The way the mind works, what little I know about it, I would provide the context first, or the problem situation, and then illustrate how your product, gadget, tool, procedure, whatever it is the focus of what you're talking about, how that solves the problem. So set up with a problem, kind of a cliffhanger, and then here's how it solves that. Yeah, that's what I would suggest.
Yeah.
But that's a guess. Dr. Soto,
Yeah, no, and the template you guys use has the problem first,
Yeah.
Okay.
and then you present the solution after that. Yeah.
It aligns, better with the way human cognition just typically works, But the thing is that the way we think is normally the context is implicit. we're normally not paying any attention to the context, but it's always there, and it enriches our experience of focal experience because the context is just giving that a rich situation or a framework, to experience, whatever it is, the gadget or whatever. So yeah, sure. One thing, I have a good friend in Minneapolis, Steve Warfield. He was a philosopher in college many years ago, and he owns his own business. It's a consulting firm. It's a high-tech consulting firm. He consults with architects and designers on building design. He consulted with the Minnesota Vikings to redesign their stadium so that when an enemy team is in town, they can actually concentrate this crowd noise to sort of disrupt the opposing team, or they can shut down the sound if their team, is trying to rally around, a last-minute field goal or something to win a game. They can actually put up some sound absorption, in the stadium that's to quiet down the crowd noise. So he's done some really interesting stuff. His lab used to be Sound 80 Studios in Minneapolis, which was the first digital recording studio way back in 1980. The artist formerly known as Prince, or wherever he ended up there, the late Prince, he recorded there. One of the first artists to record in that. So he has some historic notoriety there with his laboratory. He also has documented his lab as the quietest place on earth. Guinness Book of World Records. And one of the reasons he got that designation is that he has a $25,000 microphone that you actually need to record sound that low. It's like a minus 15 dB or something like that is the level. So it's documented Guinness Book of World Records, quietest place on earth. It's an anechoic chamber. It's literally it's separate from the building structure itself with springs. So it's a structure within a structure, spring loaded. It's got cones that are about 3 feet long. So when you're in that room, you can literally hear your heart beat. And if I'm not directly facing you, talking to you, then you can't hear me. So if I turn around and start talking like this, absolutely no reflection in that room whatsoever. So if I turned around and was talking this way, you wouldn't be able to hear me. It's a phenomenal place. Anyway, quietest phenomenon. Why did I mention that? He gave me a little rule of thumb. This might be relevant for you guys, I don't know. Younger people, you typically don't follow these old-fashioned rules, but his little rule of thumb, he said, Jay, always outdress your client. So hence, this is not my normal get up at all, but Jay, always outdress your client. I don't know whether that gives them an implicit confidence that you know what you're talking about, or that you're successful, or whatever, I don't know. You just take that with a grain of salt. I don't know to what extent, dress for success is still a priority in today's world. The guy that was on there at Shark Tank, he didn't have on a suit, did he? I don't remember. I don't think he did. But anyway. Something else, an observation or a question?
Jumping onto what you were talking about, there's a principle called extreme contrast creates extreme clarity. And when you make something so extreme like that weight, that's what you create the most powerful impact.
That's an excellent observation. Absolutely. Yep. I love that phrase too. I'm not sure I've ever heard it. What did you say again?
Extreme contrast creates extreme clarity. So you always take something to its ultimate end.
Yeah.
And then that's how you get 100% clarity.
Yeah, and the difference is extremely clear. Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.